Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully you've just taken part in our SOTAs class that talks about how we do problem solving. The next step in that, or a little bit more sophisticated step in that, is using that same method of problem solving in helping our youth learn self-government and self-determination. We really are helping them learn how to make good choices for themselves. As they're younger, they're used to being taken care of, and that's fine, but we've all had that, that 2-year-old that's like, no, I don't need help. I want to make macaroni and cheese, or I want to put my own coat on. And, they want to be self-determined. It's part of our humanity, right? That we really want to be able to make these choices for ourselves. And sometimes they're simple, like, do I want a bath or do I want to shower? And believe it or not, we've had arguments over this in my own home with my own teenagers. My kids debating whether it's better to bath or better to shower. And I'm like, I don't know why you guys think this matters. And it matters to them. And that's the important thing. Engaging that sort of natural motivation to want to be involved and make decisions about your own life is one of the things that we help not only to teach kids new skills and a different way to be, because it's just a better idea, but getting that kind of that heart part of them, that visceral part of them that's like, no, I want to have a say in this. This is my life and I want to have a say in it. Self-government and self-determination engages that part of a young person's body, mind, brain, all of it, so that they really feel invested, and the changes that you're helping them make can be very long lasting if we can get them to really feel like they have control and like they have a say. So we do this especially in the beginning with what they want their treatment to look like. What do they want their goals to be? What parts of their lives are working and what parts are not working. And it's always really impressive to me how even very young children, they understand that they're not good at making friends maybe, and they want to have friends and they want to be included in playgroups. So I've had 5 and 6-year-olds tell me in a treatment planning meeting, I don't want to be mean to my friends anymore because then they don't like me. Well, guess what, you guys? That's a treatment goal. That is a great, fantastic, self-determined treatment goal that we can help that young person engage in. And it was her decision. She decided that that's what she wanted her goal to be. Helping them establish rules and consequences in your home. They almost always think of consequences that are more harsh than you would have ever come up with in your wildest imagination. They also will accept them better because they helped to decide what the rules were going to be. And I keep touching my chest on purpose because it's the part of their heart that helps them to buy in to all of these changes you're trying to help them make. It also helps them with leadership opportunities. They not only learn how to govern themselves, but also how to take a leadership role with the other members of the house. We had the funniest situation with a little boy who the whole family knew that I hope that I don't offend anybody, but he was like 4 and his aim was not good in the restroom. We'll just put it that way. And it was upsetting to everyone in the home. And so they actually brought this up as a topic in family meeting, which is one of the ways that we use self-government. Rather than be punitive to this youngster who was just using, to learn the potty appropriately, they actually elected him as the bathroom manager. And they talked about the situation and they talked about the options and all the disadvantages and advantages of all of those options during a family meeting, as you previously learned when we talked about using the SOTAs method. And ultimately they decided and voted that this youngster would be the bathroom manager. That was all it took for him to be proud of their bathroom and to clean up after himself. And every time anyone left the bathroom, it was his job to go in and make sure that it was clean and tidy and pleasant for the next person that went into the restroom. And again, this might sound really silly, but everyone in the family was older than him. They all knew that he was the one that was leaving the bathroom a mess. But just giving him that ownership of, hey buddy, we trust you. we're proud of you. You are grown up enough to, to take on this really important job. And handling it in such a positive way completely changed his attitude and his ownership of those bathroom responsibilities. And he began to take real pride in the condition of their restroom. And actually, the way that I became aware of it is that I went to visit the home on just a regular visit, and he immediately took my hand and took me to see how wonderful and clean and awesome their bathroom was. I will never forget that experience because it was one that could have been handled in a number of ways, and it was handled in the most productive, pleasant way that it could have been handled. So that's just a little snapshot of how we use self-government to help our kiddos make really good choices. As I already mentioned, we want our youth to have as much control over their environment as possible. So we allow them huge say in their treatment goals, in their personal goals, choosing what skills they want to learn. Asking kids, what do you think you're really good at and what do you think you need help with? Simple questions like that. They're really very insightful and a lot smarter than we sometimes give them credit for. We also want to promote decision-making opportunities. Sometimes people think that when a youth is going to, a quote-unquote program, that it's going to be really structured and sterile and not involve a lot of self-determination. But we really believe in our kids' abilities to become leaders, to become good decision makers, to manage their own environment and their own lives. And they will only do that if we give them opportunities to do that. It's great if you have a young person who knows how to follow the rules, but do they also know how to negotiate a different rule if that rule doesn't make sense anymore? If you've got an 18-year-old and they've still got an 8 o'clock curfew, that makes no sense, right? It's a rule, but it should be negotiated in an age-appropriate way. And we allow them the opportunity to do things like that. Often haven't been given a lot of choices, so it gives them the opportunity to think, yes, I could do A, but I can also do B or C or D, and opens up a lot broader worldview than they have typically been exposed to. If you allow the youth in your home to choose their own consequence, I've often had kids say, I don't have any privileges for a month. I don't have phone, TV, I don't get to see anybody. And as a parent, you think, oh my gosh, kiddo, that's pretty harsh. But we let them make those choices. And oftentimes we'll negotiate that down to something that is much more realistic. And, as we learned before, size matters in consequences, right? Sometimes they do that because they're used to being punished and they think that you want them to punish themselves, or they feel like they need to punish themselves. And it can be hugely relationship building when you negotiate a consequence down after they've set a sky-high consequence. We teach them how to do peer and self-reporting. If you've got multiple youth in your home or multiple kids that live there, it's reporting to you when something, dangerous or unsafe is happening. There are some youth that we need to be kind of careful with this because peer reporting can quickly turn into tattling. Very, very minor problems are being reported when they don't involve safety or rules or really anything that matters. There's kind of a fine line that you walk when teaching your youth to do peer reporting because it can damage their relationships with the other youth in the home if they're constantly just tattling on minor little rule infractions in your home. The other thing we teach them how to do is self-reporting. And this is much harder because it's easy to tattle on a friend that's made a mistake. It's much harder for you to say, hey, mom and dad, hey, whatever your name is, I slept today. I know I shouldn't have. I had a test and I was nervous, and instead of going to class, I decided to go to McDonald's with my friends. Or, hey, you told me I couldn't have a candy bar, and so I put it in my pocket and walked out of the store. These are the kinds of things that we teach our kids to self-report. We praise them for self-reporting. And of course they have to make amends, and of course they have to correct anything that they have done wrong by taking the candy bar back, for example, and remedying any consequences that might have to do with the store's reaction to them taking the candy bar. But we will be there by them to support them in making that very positive decision. It's one of the most touching things that you will ever be involved in, when a youth trusts you enough to come to you and admit a mistake. And your reaction to that mistake is invaluable in reinforcing them to do that again. Because we are all human, we are all going to make mistakes. And being able to own up to those mistakes and admit when we've done something wrong is just about the most mature thing that you really can do as a person. So we love it when we get the kids to the point where they're willing to talk about their own mistakes and talk to their caregivers about their mistakes. We talked a little bit about peer leadership, and essentially my example with the youngster that was the bathroom manager, to broaden that out a little bit, often our homes employ like a chore manager. So they have a situation where the youth in their home kind of take turns checking off on other people's kind of daily chores. It takes a lot to keep a household running, especially if you have your own biological children and then you have 2 or 3 youth that are in foster care. That's a lot of kids and a lot of mess and a lot of just things that you've got to do to keep your home running smoothly. And when you elect a chore manager or a peer leadership manager, they can be really helpful in not only making your house more clean and pleasant, but that also helps them develop those leadership skills. They learn how to give feedback appropriately. They learn how to accept feedback appropriately. They learn how to correct their peers and do it in a nice and productive way, which is really, really helpful. The other way that we do that is family meeting, which I've already alluded to in my other scenario. So we'll talk about that in just a bit. So we've talked a little bit about peer reporting already. We really only ask them to report those behaviors that are harmful. And also in addition to that, we ask them to report positive behaviors. If it's typical for youth to kind of know what each other are working on. So if a youth is working on honesty and one of their peers comes and tells you, hey, I asked so-and-so if he had my headphones and he, apologized for borrowing them without asking and returned them to me. That's an awesome, positive peer report and things that we love to hear. As I mentioned before, it helps them build communication and trust, not only between you and the youth in your home, but as peers come to learn that they're only going to have things reported that will help them be better, and it's not tattling and it's not done in a mean-spirited way or a way to hurt them, they actually really build trust with each other as well because they have each other's back in a really positive way. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about how to use peer leadership because it's one of those things that I actually have already talked about quite a bit. And in addition to that, it can be very individualized to your home. So I will leave that primarily to your consultant to work out with you based on the number of kids you have at home, the number of youth that you have, the best way to use peer leadership in your own home. Let's talk a little bit about family meeting because there are a lot of families that use some form of family meetings or family councils. Primarily, we would like the youth to be the people in the family that come up with topics for family meeting. It doesn't always have to be the kids, but we really encourage them to do that. Everyone contributes. It should be something that the family ultimately will end up being able to vote on. Where do you guys want to go for family vacation? What would be a fun family activity for the weekend? Do you want to shower in the morning or at night? What day do you want to do your laundry? All of these are pretty typical kinds of topics for family meeting. We use peer leadership in this. Often, if you've got a peer leader, they're the person that leads the meeting and helps each member of the family to respect the opinions of the person who is giving information at the time. We, obviously use good manners and we take turns and only the person speaking gets to speak and all of those kinds of really common, very expected things. And in addition to that, we use what we call critical concepts. within the meeting. I'll talk to you about those in just a moment. We have worksheets that we use to document our family meetings. They're helpful in documenting treatment, but also it's really typical for something to be decided on in a family meeting, and then we tend to forget what we talked about. So what did we decide was the consequence for that? Or, where did we decide we were going to go? These kinds of questions. So if you document the meeting, it's easier to go back to it and get everyone back on the same page. We definitely stick to one topic, and the reason we do that is because we like to keep the meeting short and productive. Your kids are going to be a lot more likely to want to sit down for a meeting if it's not an hour and a half of mom and dad like droning on and on and on about, that sounds so mean. I'm a parent, so I'm putting myself squarely in that boat as well. We try so hard not to, guys, but we all know that we tend to talk too much. So keeping your meeting short and having your kids be the main leaders of the meeting sets a completely different tone and a more positive and productive one. So if any behavior happens, either positive or anything that you need to correct, we also encourage you to do some teaching during the meeting, and then any teaching that you need to do after the meeting can be followed up on at the close of the meeting. I train my families to hang a sign-up sheet on their fridge who hasn't had the experience of, cooking dinner or washing dishes, being engaged in an activity, and having one of their kids come up to them and start to complain about something. Well, so-and-so took my this, or I can't bath because there's no hot water or shower. If you react to that in the moment and start trying to say, well, you go to your room and you give them this toy and, mom's going to fix this because you guys are all complaining. If you have a sign-up sheet for family meeting just hanging on the fridge or a common area of the home, it's a beautiful thing when you can say to a young person, I can see that this is really concerning to you. Why don't you write it on the fridge and we'll bring it up at family meeting so that we can figure out how to solve it. That does some really great things. It takes the drama out of it. It gives whoever is the complainer time to kind of cool down and gain some perspective, transitions that from a problem that you need to fix into a problem that the whole family can work on solving together. So you don't have to be the boss in everything, which is very, very nice. Okay, so I alluded to the critical concepts just a moment ago. This is the other thing that takes whatever the concern is out of the realm of a complaint and into the realm of a problem that we can solve. If, for example, you had one of your kids come up and say, it's not fair because I always have to shower last and there's never any hot water, and I hate so-and-so because they always take 30-minute showers. And I'm sure that most of you have either heard of this argument or experienced it yourself. If you use the critical concepts that are listed of pleasantness, effectiveness, fairness, or showing concern for others, you can kind of couch that what looks like a complaint into a problem that can be solved. What I would say to one of my children that brought that concern to me is, it sounds like you think it would be more fair if you got to shower first, or if you got to shower in the morning instead of showering at night. Yeah, that would be way better. So great. That is a great topic for family meeting. Why don't you put shower times or shower days as a topic for family meeting? So you're still providing guidance and direction, but instead of having it be something that's dramatic and horrible and, the world is not fair, it turns it into a problem that you can solve. So as an example, you can ask, would it be pleasant to have chocolate cake for breakfast? Absolutely, that would be great. We would all love that, right? But you can also ask yourself, would it show concern for others if we just ate chocolate cake for breakfast, if that was just what we ate for breakfast? Not really, because it's not healthy and it doesn't really set you up for a good day if you have a super heavy sweet treat first thing in the morning. So some typical self-government topics are house rules, consequences for behavior, And as we've talked about previously, consequences can be both positive and negative. So when we say consequences for behavior, some people think only negative consequences, but we also apply positive consequences. So an example of that is if your kids use good manners, the positive consequence of that could be that they would earn a marble. Every time you heard someone say please and thank you, they'd earn a marble. And when the jar is full, then the family gets to go to a movie together. That's a positive consequence. And those are things that we talk about at family meeting. Also things like family activities, family vacations, different social skills that everyone in the house could work on. Using good table manners is a good example of this. Sometimes we get a little comfortable and we get a little messy and it's a little bit unpleasant for other people to eat by us. So we can talk about how the whole family can use more respectful table manners and make our home more pleasant. So you'll notice pleasant would be the critical concept that is used in that topic. If there are any schedule changes or special activities, those are often brought up at family meetings as well. And if you're planning on any big home or service projects, you can talk about those as well. Just think for a moment in your mind, what would be a good family meeting topic that you could use right now in your home with your family. The example here on this slide is refilling the ice cube trays. And so the critical concept would be more effective, quote unquote effective, putting that critical concept in there of more effective ways to keep the ice cube trays filled. So as you notice, one of the things that we really like to do and find really effective is turning a negative into a positive. The quote-unquote topic or complaint might be, no one ever fills up the ice cream. I would love ice cream trays. Ice cube trays, and that's kind of the concern, right? Or the problem that's brought to your attention. And then the way to make that a problem and a positive is, oh, so you'd like us to come up with a plan for how to keep those ice cube trays filled. Yes, I would love that. Great, that's an awesome family meeting topic. Let's talk about it. It's a little bit tricky. I almost never have kids call me out on turning their negatives into positives, but you can almost see the light bulb go off above their head and their eyes brighten, their face, like the tension drops from their face and they're like, yes, that is a problem we need to solve. We all do that, right? When we're focused on problems, everything seems bad, everything seems negative, but when we're focused on solving problems or the solution to problems, everything just seems brighter. And the same thing is true of the kids in your home as well. So let's talk about youth participation. As you'll remember, the topic of this class is self-government and self-determination. We wouldn't be fulfilling that mission if the youth didn't participate. As I mentioned before, some families have a form of a family meeting or some kind of a family council, call it whatever you want, that is primarily led by the parents. And this is a change away from that because youth participation is vital in the self-determination process. Even if you've got a youngster that might be too young to give very meaningful input or someone who's very shy and very introverted, they have a voice as well. They might not be as loud and they might not be, as outward with their opinion, but we want to hear everybody's opinion in the family. Everyone has a voice. Mom and dad have an equal voice as well. I've kind of put you guys on the back burner for this, but in a family meeting environment, everyone in the family has an equal vote. In this process, you are equals. We use the problem-solving process, which keeps it organized and orderly. We use critical concepts to help them shift from that complaining problem focus to the problem-solving or positive solution-focused focus. If you have a peer leader, usually it's that youngster that leads the meeting, and that gives them a sense of importance in terms of, I really have a voice. What I say matters in this family. Always in everything that we do during the family meeting, we use that kind of the same critical concept. So it would really be more fair, Mom and Dad, if, if I got to shower first instead of last. That would feel more fair to me. And then we all discuss, the fairness of what our shower schedule is, which for some families might not be a big deal, but if you've got a big family with a lot of people in it, it's not fun to take a cold shower. And things that we don't think are a big deal, often our kids do think are a big deal. And allowing them that forum gives them that voice that we've been talking about. Things to do in a family meeting. Do have them every week. Do have all team members take turns running the meeting. Let the peer leaders lead, or a weekly youth, which we'll talk about that when we talk about motivation systems. Keep them short. If you have a small family, I would say 10 to 15 minutes. If you've got a larger family, no more than 20 minutes. Make sure you use that sign-up sheet because that makes them wait for an appropriate time to talk about it instead of just bringing a complaint to you. Take notes and keep them in a notebook so that everybody can remember and be on the same page. Other members of the family, younger members of the family can be timekeepers. They can review the rules. There are all kinds of ways that members of your family can be involved in this process. It's amazing how special and important they feel when they get to hold the phone that has the timer on it. Really try hard to stick to one topic. It can be very easy to get off on a tangent, but then that makes your meetings not as effective. Always include your natural children. You are a family. It's not, the bio kids and then us and then the foster kids. Everyone that lives in your home is a family and should be included in the process. So what does it mean when we say we respect the youth's opinion? What if we don't like or can't do one of the suggestions that the youth makes? If youth bring up a topic that really isn't open for discussion, let's say, curfew. I want my curfew to be 3 a.m. Well, I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen, right? So we can have a discussion about curfew, but it's okay to set parameters for the discussion. We can absolutely discuss curfew, everything up till midnight, right? Because it's illegal for you as a teenager to be out past midnight, and we follow the law in this home. Let's say all of your kids kind of gang up on you and they outvote you for a decision that you're not sure how it's going to go. Typically what I do is set a short review period because, let's face it, we have more life experience than the kids. Typically, we've got a pretty good idea about how things are going to go. Sometimes I've been really surprised. There are things that I let kids decide that I thought were going to be a train wreck. And they ended up working beautifully because the kids were they believed in them and they worked hard to achieve, whatever the decision was that they made. But if it's something that you're really concerned about, let's say they decide that everyone's going to take a night of the week to make dinner, and a couple of the kids in the home, the only thing they know how to make is scrambled eggs. And so it's this is going to be kind of horrible if we do this for too long. Then just set a short review period. So this will be great. Let's do this week, and then we'll come back next week and talk about how well it's working. And then you can make little tweaks to the plan. Great, we are going to rotate dinner every night, everybody except maybe the youngest two kids, or mom or dad are going to help on those nights when the youngest two are scheduled to cook. There are a lot of different ways that you can kind of finesse these decisions that still allow for the youth to have control and have a voice. And in addition to that, they can sort of decide for themselves what's working and what's not working. What are the things that we absolutely want to do? When we're having the family meeting, what do we teach to? Because we're always going to be teaching. So good things to teach to during a family meeting are, manners, taking your turn, respecting each other's opinions. If it's somebody that's very shy, we could teach to being assertive and really praise the kids for being assertive when it's not typical of them to speak up too much. When do we teach during a family meeting? If it's a praise or something that you can do in a really quick period of time, I would encourage you to teach during the meeting. It's great to praise a youth who has a hard time speaking up when she finally does it. That's so great for them to hear. And then anything that needs to be followed up on can be done after the meeting. If there's a significant behavior that needs to be corrected, if somebody's just being really disruptive, if we can just say, hey kiddo, I can see you're having a hard time, but you're not respecting of the other people talking. And you can do that kind of quietly and then follow up with any teaching after the meeting. During the meeting, it can be very disruptive if there's a lot of teaching going on, but immediacy is really important. So not forgetting to teach during the meeting is also equally important. So you will be practicing family meetings one-on-one with your consultant, and she or he will provide you with a family meeting binder. But I would encourage you to start family meetings right away, even before you finish training. They're hugely helpful in your parenting. They really allow that opportunity for your kids to feel heard. And in addition, it helps get them in the mindset of problem solving rather than complaining. So this is one of the classes that I would highly encourage you. You can't really do it wrong. So I would highly encourage you to practice that while you're in training and with your natural kids, or in other situations. If there are decisions that need to be made at work and you would like to use this method to kind of work on those issues, they can be very, very helpful. So I hope you learned a lot. I hope you will start practicing, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.